Progress.
All right, so last time we began Sif Vav. Now, Sif Vav has many, many parts to it, and I was a little bit ahead of schedule, so I started it. I would like to go back to the beginning of Sif Vav, and as we go along with the Shulchan Aruch, I want to explain every Nakuda. So what I did was on the sheets, everything on these sheets is from the Shulchan Aruch, but there are a few things that I got from the Oiz V'Hader Shulchan Aruch, which is wonderful, and they write a hakdama every once in a while, and they have pirushim on the bottom. So when it's from the Oiz V'Hader, I typed in Oiz V'Hader. Okay, so I typed up the lashon from the Oiz V'Hader. So I want to go through the Shulchan Aruch, but I'm going to pause and jump around. So the sheets are basically what I'm going to be working off today, but it's good. Everything's kimat there. So the Shulchan Aruch begins with Sif Vav as follows: Hama'ushan v'hamavushal b'chamei Tveria. If you have milk and meat that was smoked together, or mevushal b'chamei Tveria, so it was cooked in heat, but it's chamei Tveria, which is a natural geyser. So obviously, when it comes to bishul, that's not your classic bishul because it's a God-made heat. It's not your classic bishul. So if you cook milk and meat with smoking it, or if through the chamei Tveria, what's the halacha? Ein loiken alav. There is no lashes. Now, what does that mean? Pause. So jump to the Shach in Sifkat and Yud Gimel. What does it mean that there's no lashes? So the Shach explains, Aval Isura Mia Ika. There is no lashes da'iraisa, meaning it is not Basar b'chalav da'iraisa, but it is Aser derabanan. By the way, not just Aser derabanan to eat, but Aser derabanan to cook as well, which is, I don't think we've really seen that. There's an Iser derabanan on Bishol, on Hana, on Achila. Chazal felt that this is too similar, and they put their foot down. In the beginning of the first year, we talked about how if it's just derabanan, there's no iser bishul, there's no iser hana, just iser achila. This is different. Isura miya ika. B'chein, b'chalav mesa, and the Meshach explains the case that we'll get to in a few moments, which is chalav mesa, which is the milk of a dead animal. Isura miya ika, there's also an iser derabanan, gabi k'chol. U'kumesha kasav harav ba'gah b'samach, as the Ramah will clarify in a moment. V'chein kulu. All the cases of this sif, mashma isura mi'ika. Every single case of this sif is an issa derabanan. Okay. Afilu b'chalav zachar, even in chalav zachar, which will clarify what is chalav zachar. Umasha kasav harav ba'gah chalav zachar le'mikri chalav klal yisbar b'safkad and tesvav. And the Ramah's chalav zachar will also clarify. Fine. So back to the mechaber. Hama'ushan v'hamavushal b'chamei Tveria ein loiken alav. There's just an issa derabanan, but there's no issa deraisa, but there's an issa derabanan. Okay, good. Continues in the mechaber. V'chein hamevashal basar b'mei chalav. You know what's also derabanan? Cooking meat in mei chalav. Now, what is mei chalav? So this, last time I didn't clarify too much. So I said that mei chalav generally is when you make cheese, you remove the cheese, and there's a milky way in the water, right? And we said that that's what mei chalav is. That is not so pashut. Pause. What is mei chalav that it's asa derabanan? So if you look in Ois Beis, I brought down on the sheets the Shulchan Aruch himself. The Shulchan Aruch, 2 seifim later, in Sif Ches, the Shulchan Aruch in Sif Ches clarifies what is mei chalav, which is an interesting thing. Again, mei chalav that it's asa derabanan. Pashtus, if you would ask the average person who's knowledgeable what is mei chalav, they would tell you when you take, I think there's an extra one over there, I don't know if there's an extra one, maybe? That mei chalav, pashtus, is you take cheese, you remove the cheese, and the water has a milky residue. Pashtus, that's mei chalav. Now the mechaber is saying that's asa derabanan. That's a little strange because it's whey. Whey is mamish milk. So the mechaber clarifies in Sif Ches. Yesh misha oimer. There are those that say the nisiyuve dechalva. Nisiyuve dechalva is what I just mentioned. What is that? Pirush chalav hamismatze mikvoin hagvina. That when you remove the cheese, whatever milky residue is left in the water, einam b'chlal mei chalav. That's not mei chalav. That's actually milk d'oraisa. Meaning, this statement of the mechaber in Sif Vav, that if you cook in mei chalav, it's only aser derabanan, is not what I mentioned before. It's not where you remove the cheese and you have milky whey left over in the water. That is not derabanan. That's actually d'oraisa. That's chalav. Says the mechaber, v'aser min haTorah. So what's aser derabanan? Ela mei chalav hainu. Achar she'osim hagvinis mevashlim hanisiyuve. After they would remove the cheese, they would boil the water. Then, ha'oichel tzaf milmaila. When they would boil the water, there would be some curds that would go to the top. They would remove that. The water that's left over, that's mei chalav. So it's not where you just remove the cheese, because that's still milk. You then boil the water, remove the curds. What you're left with is the mei chalav. That's what the Mechaber says. So back to the Mechaber in Vav. If you cook meat in mei chalav, and what's mei chalav? Mei chalav is after you remove the cheese, you boil the water, remove the curds from on top. What you're left over is mei chalav. That's only rabbinic. Back continuing the Mechaber. Oy b'chalav mesa. Or if you cook meat in milk that came out of a dead cow, that's also only aser d'Rabbanan. Why is that aser d'Rabbanan? That's a full-fledged cow. So no, even if it is kosher, you're allowed to drink milk from a cow that died, right? It is Ois Gimel. So Ois Gimel is from the Ois V'Hadar. The Ois V'Hadar, by the way, it happens to be when we started this, I told people you don't have to buy this because it's expensive. It happens to be, I think it replaces everybody. Ois V'Hadar is amazing. But so they explained on the bottom in Ois Gimel, I typed it up, Gezeris HaKosevhu. Milk from a dead cow, the fact that it's only rabbinic is Gezeris HaKosev. Shechalav sheyatze midadei habehema rak lachar misasai ein by iser basa b'chalav min haTorah. It is purely Gezeris HaKosev that milk that comes out of a dead cow is only rabbinic. Why? The Nilma Gemara Chulin, the Gemara in Chulin makes a drasha, chalav imo v'lo chalav mesa. Okay, it's Gezeris HaKosev. Fine. So you have milk, back to the Mechaber on top. So you have milk that comes out of a dead cow, that's also d'Rabbanan. Oy b'chalav zachar, or milk that comes out of a male. What is this male? This is not a male person. This is a male animal. In Dalid, I also quote from the Ois V'Hadar. Kavanas HaMechaber, the intention of the Mechaber when he says that it's rabbinically forbidden from zachar, l'chalav behema zachar. It's not, again, not a person, not a male person, a male animal. Ein by iser basa b'chalav min haTorah, and the milk that comes out of a male animal, meaning, if for whatever reason the male animal is giving off milk, I don't know why he's doing that, something's wrong, but if they do that, that's only aser d'Rabbanan. V'nilman mi Gemara Chulin, chalav ima v'lo chalav zachar. Again, Gezeris HaKosev, that is only aser d'Rabbanan. Back to the Mechaber. Oishe bishel dam b'chalav. Or if you take blood and cook it in milk. Blood and milk is also only basar b'chalav d'Rabbanan, meaning blood has like meat-like properties, but it's only basar b'chalav d'Rabbanan. Now, potter, meaning it's potter, ve'ein loiken ala chilasa mishum basar b'chalav. All of these things are only rabbinic. Now, before we go weiter, blood and milk, so if you cook it together, you're only over in Issa d'Rabbanan. If you drink it, what is the prohibition? So it's only basar b'chalav d'Rabbanan. But what about the fact that it's dam? Dam is aser d'oraisa, right? You can't drink blood. So if you look in Ois Hey, which is the Shach in Sivkatan Tesvav, the Shach clarifies in Sivkatan Tesvav, Koloshan hazeh kasav harambam. This lashon of the Mechaber is borrowed from the Rambam. Umashme daito. Now the Rambam's lashon implies dimishum basar b'chalav hu de'ein lokin ala chilaso, that blood and milk cooked together is only basar b'chalav d'Rabbanan. Ha mishum dam lokin ala chilaso. You're only going to be punished rabbinically for basar b'chalav, but it's biblical because of blood. It's still blood. Drinking blood is asur d'oraisa. Afal pisha bishlu. What about the fact that you cook the blood? So what? Desvirle, because the Rambam's opinion is dam shebishlu oiver olav, that if you cook blood, you're oiver in isser deraisa on drinking the blood. That is the opinion of the Rambam. So if I take blood and I cook it in milk, it's rabbinic basar b'chalav, but it's also biblical blood. That's the Rambam's opinion. Bazak the Shach miu anan kaimalon dedam shebishlu shemolchu einay ela midrabanan. But our opinion is that blood, on Zoom, our opinion is that if you cook blood, it's only rabbinic. That's how we paskin in the Shulchan Aruch. Once blood is cooked, it's only d'Rabbanan. So if I were to cook cook blood in chalav, it's only rabbinic all around. It's rabbinic basar b'chalav, it's rabbinic blood, because once blood is cooked, it's only d'Rabbanan. That's how we paskin. Again, this is not for now. This is sugyas in dam. but that's how we pass. Yeah, everything is derabanan. Okay. Now, back to the Mechaber, and we've done the Mechaber, and now we're up to the Ramah. Now, let me explain that the Ramah is going to clarify a few things. Then the Ramah is going to have a few halachas. Each of the halachas, the Ramah says, is a problem. But he ends off his statement at the very end of this very long Ramah, is that all of these things that I mentioned are a problem, are just chumras. Everything is just a chumrah. So what we're going to do is, as we go through each one, we'll clarify the Ramah, and I'll also point out why it's potentially only a chumrah and not a real issue. So says the Ramah like this, Hagah, in the third line in the sheets, but again, we're up to the Ramah. The chalav zachar loy mikri chalav klal. Now, milk that comes from a male is nothing. It's not milk at all. Now, we just got finished saying that milk that comes from a male is derabana. Now he's saying it's nothing. So it's not a machlokas. This male is talking about a male person. When the Mechaber said that it's derabana, that's from a male animal. The Ramah is now clarifying that if it comes from a male person, it's nothing. Meaning, if your friend John is secreting milk, that's not a thing, and it's not milk at all. What is it? I don't know. But when you eat it in your chulin, it's not going to be a problem. That's the Ramah. It says, Loi mikri cholav klal, and in Vav, I clarify from the Oiz V'Hadar, Kavanas harama l'cholav adam zachar. The Ramah is referring to milk that comes from a male person. She'enoi chamor mecholav isha, she'en by iser af l'midirabanan. It's nothing. It's not even dirabanan at all. The only thing it potentially is, elarak chashash marisayin. Okay, it could be marisayin if it taka looks like, that you're cooking it in milk, is maybe in marisayin, but it's not milk at all from a halachic perspective. Okay, back to the Ramah. Basar, if this milk that comes from a male person falls into your cholent, you don't need shishim, you don't need anything. It's nothing. It's not milk. It's not a problem. Aval chalav mesa. Now, what was the halacha of milk that came from a dead animal? We said that's a gzeres hakasiv, that it's only derabanan. It's asa derabanan to cook, asa derabanan to eat, asa derabanan hana. Everything's derabanan. Same thing with mei chalav. We said mei chalav is also derabanan, derabanan, derabanan. So the Ramah, for some reason, just reiterates this, and the Ramah says, "Aval chalav mesa." But if milk comes from a dead animal, umei chalav or mei chalav oisrim hamachol k'may chalav atzmo. Because it's derabanan, it's a problem, and you need shishim, like regular milk, because again, it's rabbinic milk. Va'afilu bebishol, and even cooking it, yesh la'eser l'chachila. It's a problem l'chachila. Now, meaning, chalav mesa, milk that comes from a dead animal, is rabbinically milk, and you're not allowed to cook in it. It's asa d'rabanan. So the Ramah says, bibishol yesh la'eser l'chachila. You're not allowed to cook it l'chachila. Now, what does l'chachila mean? What do I mean l'chachila? I thought it's aser d'rabanan to cook. What do you mean l'chachila? So, if you look at the Taz, this is the end of the Taz in Hay. So that's going all the way back, but in the sheets it's right there. But if you go at the end of Taz in Hay, the Taz says like this: Lashon lichachila shezacha harama. When the Ramah says that taking milk from a dead animal and cooking it is aser lichachila, what he means is it's aser derabanan. So why does he say lichachila if it's aser derabanan? Because it's only derabanan, Chazal were lenient in case of necessity. So he says asa l'chachila, meaning it's asa derabanan. Don't do it l'chachila. If you need to, Chazal were not so strict. So Chazal were strict l'chachila. That's what it means. Lashon l'chachila shezachar Ramah kan. The lashon of the Ramah where he says l'chachila, that he says it in Sif Hey, v'chein b'samach gabi chalav mesa, and he says in our Sif Vav regarding chalav mesa, l'nim bishol nirish and eschavin. What the Ramah means is that it's aser derabanan to cook. Yesh li zar b'makom she'ein tzorach gadol. You should be strict unless it's a great necessity. Meaning, Chazal were only strict when it's possible to listen to them. But if it's a great necessity, they're lenient. She'ein tzorach gadol makom tzorach l'refuah. But if there's a necessity to cook meat in the milk of a dead animal, let's say for refuah purposes, af she'ein sakana b'davar. I'm not talking about life-threatening. Just there's a necessity. Yesh lahater bishul b'chalav behema. B'chalav behema b'ma she'ena isar l'chila midrabanan. Meaning, in other words, what the Taz is saying is that this Isser Derabanan is waived when it's Tzarech Gadol. Okay. A lot of stuff. Now let's keep going. Now the Ramah says the issues. The Ramah mentions 1, 2, 3, 4 issues. But again, he clarifies at the end that each one of these issues is just a chumrah. So let's start each one, and I'll point out along the way why each one is potentially just a chumrah, because you'll see each case is kind of flawed if you actually analyze it. Let's go case number 1. Yesh Omrim. This is what I ended last week on, which is the suffix psik resha. Or psik resha de lahaba, however you want to form it. It's a complicated case, but the Ramah says like this. Yesh Omrim, there are those that say, Osir lachtos ha'esh tachas kedera shel ovdi kachavim. If you have, again, they had a stove in their living room that they would use to heat up their house. You walk into your house and you want to stoke the coals to make the fire bigger. Now, at the same time, now you're doing this for heat purposes, but your non-Jewish cleaning lady is cooking something in the pot. Let's say you open up the pot and you see that it's broccoli. She's cooking broccoli on it. Nope. You're not allowed, yesh oimim, osir lachtos ha'esh tachas kederish alovik. You're not allowed to stoke the coals under the pot. Why? Lefi shehem mevashlim behem pa'amim chalav. You came just in time for suffix psik resha. Pa'amim suffix psik resha. We'll do it quickly. Lefi shehem mevashlim behem pa'amim chalav upa'amim basar. Because even though right now the guy is cooking broccoli in the pot, and you want to stoke the coals because you want to make the fire bigger so that it's warm in your living room, you're not allowed to. Why? Because perhaps in the past 24 hours she's cooked basar b'chalav in the pot, and now when you cook the broccoli, basar b'chalav is being pumped into the broccoli. Or let's say she's cooking meat, but maybe she cooked milk 10 minutes ago. Or she's cooking milk, maybe she cooked meat 10 minutes ago. In other words, you don't know what was cooked in the last 24 hours. It's possible it's some combination of basar b'chalav. When you stoke the coals, making the fire bigger, you're aiding in the process of cooking basar b'chalav. Major issue. Not allowed, so you're not allowed to stoke the coals under the fire. That is a problem. Now, pause. I told you everything the Ramah says is a problem. He's going to end off by saying, it's just a chumrah. It's just a chumrah. Why is it just a chumrah? What's the problem? Why is it just a chumrah? So if you pause for 1 second, go to Rav Kiva Eger. It's a very lengthy Rav Kiva Eger. I've underlined the parts that I think are the most relevant. Rav Kiva Eger points out the issue that I mentioned last time, which is, when it comes to laws of Shabbos or when it comes to laws in general, usually when davar she'eno mischaven, which means my intention is not to do an avera, it's allowed. Over here, my intention is not to cook basar b'chalav. My intention is I want it to be warmer in my living room. So what's the problem? You'll say, well, when it comes to Shabbos, even if your intention is not to desecrate Shabbos, if it's psik resha, if it's inevitable that what your actions is causing chilul Shabbos, I don't care that it's not your intention. The classic case of psik resha means I want to cut off the head of a chicken because I want to play with the chicken head as for a toy. I'm not intending to desecrate Shabbos, I just want a toy. The answer is, yeah, but it's psik resha. You're cutting off the chicken's head. It's automatic. So I don't care what your intention is. If it's inevitable, it's an issue. Now, that's only true if it's inevitable. Is this case inevitable? Well, this case is kind of unique. I don't know whether it's inevitable. Generally, I have all the information and I could tell you. Over here, there's a part that I'm missing. Meaning, I know that it's inevitable that I'm going to cook something, but I don't know what I'm cooking because I don't know in the last 24 hours what she cooked. Maybe an hour ago she cooked basar b'chalav, and now when I'm cooking broccoli, I'm cooking basar b'chalav. Maybe not. So is this inevitable? It's a question mark. It's called suffix psik resha. I don't know whether it's inevitable. In Hilchos Shabbos, this is very rare because often cases in Hilchos Shabbos, you know what you're doing. I don't know what I'm doing here. So says Rav Kiva Eger, why is this an issue? Isn't this suffix psik resha? And says Rav Kiva Eger, you see from the Ramah that suffix psik resha is a problem. Let's see the Rav Kiva Eger inside. Kashali, I don't understand. Ha'eno mechaven levashal. You're not intending to cook. Rak lachtos ha'esh. You just want to make the fire bigger because you're cold. So you'll say, but it's psik reisha. It's inevitable that you're going to cook basar b'chalav. Psik reisha lo have it, but it's not psik reisha. Deshema lo bishal ha'ovikav makdera basar v'gam chalav. Because maybe they didn't cook in the last 24 hours milk and meat together. So why is the Ramah strict? By the way, this is why perhaps it's a chumrah, because it's questionable. B'tzarech lomar, but says Rabbi Akiva, you know what the answer is? You see from the Ramah, the dafka b'safik de lahaba shema lo yehonasakin b'maisa shelo k'mo gora kisa v'safsel dav b'safik shema b'griras lo yasaguma. It's only allowed if it's an absolute doubt whether it's inevitable. Aval b'safik de avar, but in this case, where I could tell you whether it's inevitable if I had all the information. This is what's called safek psik reisha. Is it inevitable? The answer is, I don't have all the information. I don't know. If I had all the information, I could answer that. Safek psik reisha, according to the Ramah, is an issue. I told you last time the practical case of safek psik reisha that the poskim apply. Rav Avad Yosef quotes this a lot, and that is when it comes to opening up a fridge. When you open up the fridge, it might cause the motor to go on. Now, will it cause the motor to go on? I don't know. Why? Is it inevitable? Well, I don't have the temperature in the fridge. If I had the temperature in the fridge and I have the temperature outside, I could tell you, but I don't have all the information. That's called safek psik reisha. Is it inevitable? Maybe. Maybe. That's the Ramah's case. It's not just a doubt, and it's not inevitable. It's inevitable if you have, think of the equation, there's a question mark. If you give me the answer to that question mark, I could tell you whether it's inevitable. The Ramah is telling you that it's an issue. That's where Rav Akiva points out. Now, Rav Akiva points out, though, if you go to the next page in the sheets, Rav Akiva says in the underline, "Achin ladas hataz shekasav sham ladas hatur benoyel ateva v'safik im yesh zvuvim." The Taz disagrees with the Ramah. Why? What's the case of the Taz? The case of the Taz is like this: you have a box, you don't know what's in the box, and you're hammering. And you're hammering in the box because you want to seal the box. Now, it's possible in the box there are flies. If there are flies in the box, then what you're doing is inevitable that you're trapping them. Your intention is not to trap the flies. Your intention is you want to make sure the box doesn't open because it's flimsy, whatever it is. I'm hammering a nail. Is this inevitable that I'm going to trap a fly? And the answer is, I don't know. If there's a fly in there, then yes. If there's no fly in there, then no. So that's called safek psik reisha. It's very similar. You know what the Taz shita? It's allowed. So says Rav Akiva, the Taz disagrees with the Ramah. That's the sheet of the Taz is chaylik. He says, "Achin ladas hataz shekasa sham ladas hatur." The Taz quotes the Tur that says, "Benoyel hateva v'safik im yesh zvuvim." If you're locking a box and you don't know if there are flies in the box, the mutter, David Avishim is chavim. V'afta have psik reisha mikamakam dilma ein sham zvuvim. And it's not psik reisha. Why? Because I don't know whether there's flies here. Is it inevitable? The answer is, answer that equation, and I'll tell you. If there's a fly in the box, yes. No fly in the box, no. The Taz says mutter. This is a machlokes Taz and Ramah. Now, Rav Akiva points out one other issue with the Ramah, and I think this is why this case is a chumrah. One other issue with the Ramah is, and this is a very good rule to know, he writes this in the underline in the next case, Kimat yefshar lizar ha'ivri derachim. First of all, it's very hard for people to be strict with this, because apparently people like to stoke the coals, and apparently Goyim always had their pots on the fire. Apparently this was an issue back then. Says Rav Akiva, I don't understand the Ramah. Why? This is a very good rule to know. This is probably one of the most important heterim in all of kashrus. We'll see throughout the halachas over the next year or two that often you'll ask the question, was the pot used in 24 hours? If the pot was not used in 24 hours, it's going to be okay, whatever the circumstances. And what if they say, I don't know? You know what the halacha is? It's fine. Stam kalam einoi bnei yoma, which means if you're not sure, you could assume it was not used in the last 24 hours. So here's the issue over here. You're coming in and you're saying we have to have a problem. You can't stoke the coals because maybe they're cooking broccoli now, but maybe in the last 24 hours they cooked milk and meat together. The general rule is that we don't just assume things were cooked within the last 24 hours. Now, I know that he's currently cooking right now. I know Adam well enough to know. That's a good point. But Akiva, I guess, still says just because they're cooking now does not mean in the last 24 hours they cooked milk and meat. So his point is, why are we being strict? Just why are we assuming? Why are we looking for problems? Basically, the guy's cooking broccoli now. Maybe in the last 24 hours they cooked milk and meat. Well, maybe not. Why are we being so strict? I'm saying it's not even a suffix. It's stam kalim, ain't a ben yomo. If you're not sure, we don't assume things were cooked within the last 24 hours.
It's not a spek.
I don't even know if it's a spek. It's more than this. It's more than spek. It's just nothing. It's generally not something we're concerned about. You're right, Svek is even better. I'm just saying, it's not something we look for problems. So Rabbi Akiva ends off with his question. So it could be, this back to the Ramah, it could be the reason why the Ramah believes this is a Chumrah is because there's a lot of room to question this opinion of the Ramah. Let's keep going. I definitely want to finish up this Mechaber, do 2 more quick one-liners, and then we'll start the next topic next week. Back to the Ramah, another halacha, which again is a problem, but he recognizes is just a Chumrah. Oid Kosvu, another opinion, Ein la'arav mayim she'adichu behem kli basar im mayim she'adichu behem kli chalav v'liten lefnei behema the asurim bahana. Okay, basically, you take a pot of water. You've been washing fleshik dishes, but like actual, not like there's pieces of meat rubbing, like there's like bits of meat, and then you have a bucket that you've been washing dairy dishes, and there's pieces of cheese. So you have like cheese water and meat water. Don't mix them together and then feed them to your animal because it's basar b'chalav, and you're not allowed to benefit from basar b'chalav. Okay, first of all, I think it's pretty fair. Quick question over here. Is the water hot or is the water cold? Right? Is the water hot or cold? Because if the water's hot, I have a bit of a problem. We'll get to it in a second. Look at the Shach for a moment. So the Ramah says don't do this. But again, the Ramah also acknowledges this is a Chumrah. So look at the Shach. This is in the Shach in Ois Tes on the second page, Sifkat and Yud Tes. Says the Shach, Hainu kishedichem b'mayim roschim. We're actually talking about hot water. Let me ask you a question though. Here's a bit of an issue with the Shach. If it's hot water, what is the Ramah saying? Don't take hot meat water and hot milk water and mix them together and feed your cow because you're not allowed to feed your cow basar b'chalav. Pause. First of all, sure, very pashut. It's a pretty obvious halacha. I have another issue. You're not allowed to cook basar b'chalav, so pouring hot waters together is also a problem. Why are you so worried about feeding your behema? If you have hot meat water and hot cheese water, and you mix them together, you're cooking basar b'chalav. Forget about like, you can't feed your animal the water because it's asur b'hana. You're cooking. It's hot. That's Rabbi Akiva's kasha. If you look in the next line, Rabbi Akiva in Sifkat and Tesvav says, Kashali, im kein milvad hana litzer la'ariv metam iser bishul. So if it's hot, then you're cooking. And first of all, also, by the way, what's the Ramah telling me? I'm not allowed to take basar b'chalav and feed my animal? Yeah, of course. So pretty pashut. I don't know what's going on over here. Huh? No, who says their hands on water? It's hot. He says ma'im reischem. Right? Ma'im reischem means boiling water. Ma'im reischem means boiling water. Boiling meat water, boiling cheese water. You're not allowed to mix it together and feed your animal because it's asur b'hana. You're not allowed to mix it together because it's cooking. I don't understand what's going on. The truth is, it's a bigger problem with the Shach. If you actually look at the source of this halacha from the Rishonim, they actually say it's cold water. It's talking about cold water. Then the Ramah makes a lot more sense. Don't do this, even though technically cold meat water, cold cheese water, you want to mix it together and feed your animal, it's technically fine because they're not cooked together. There's no Isser Hana if it's not cooked together. Now you understand why the Ramah says this is a Chumrah. Because it's not really a problem. Everything's cold, but just don't do this because this is just not a good thing to do. Even though it's technically allowed, don't feed your animal this because this is just not a good thing to do. If you look on the next paragraph in the Oiz V'Hadar, I wrote on the second page, Minchas Yaakov, Hisig al Hashacht, Isav V'Aruch. Isav V'Aruch is Rabbi Yonah. He actually is the source for Salach, and he is clear that it's talking about cold water. Mevur b'mayim tzonanim. If it's cold water, then it makes sense. There's no Isser of cooking, but don't mix it together and feed your animal. Why? Because it's hana. It's not really asur b'hana because it's cold, but it's just a bad precedent. But you also understand why the Ramah, when he says this is a chumrah, it is a chumrah because it's not actually an issue. One more case in the Ramah. The Ramah then says in the fourth to bottom line, oid kasvu, another halacha. Again, issue, but it's really a chumrah. Dekli she'osin bo mayim lechafifas harosh. Ein l'shamish bo, the oson oso me ofar sh'al hakira uregilas ho l'sariv sham basar v'chalav. Okay, basically, they used to have these buckets. They would take ash, put it in the buckets of water, and they would turn that into shampoo. You'd dip your head in the ash water, and it was shampoo. Now, what's the issue? Don't do this, says the Ramah. Why? Because and not just don't do this. Don't use those buckets to cook in when you're done washing your hair. Why? Because the ash was from the stovetop. And what happens with stovetops? It gets, by the way, Ramosha Feinstein was asked about burners. Burners are generally treif, if you think about it, because milk spills over, and then 10 minutes later, meat spills over, and people don't have special burners for meat and special burners for milk. They didn't have burners, they just had ash. So the ash had milk, and the ash had meat. So you take that ash and you put it in a bucket of water and wash your hair. Don't use that bucket to cook in afterwards because it's a Basar b'chalav bucket. Now, let me ask you a question. How am I using that for shampoo? Forget, like if you look at the Lashon of the Ramah, hakli she'osin bo mayim, the kli that you use for shampoo, ein l'shamish bo. Don't use the kli for chulent. Why? To osin osami offer, because they use in that kli shampoo dirt, ash for shampoo. And that ash has Basar b'chalav. How am I using it for shampoo then? It's Basar b'chalav. So what's like? Forget about. He's saying don't use that pot after you throw out the shampoo. Don't use that pot for milk and meat for cholent because the ash has Basar b'chalav and then you cooked it. So how are you using it? It's also bahana. So that really is the Ber Hetiv's question. If you look in Sifkat and Yud, in Ois Yud, Sifkat and Yud Ches, the Ber Hetiv in the brackets is bothered by this. The Ber Hetiv says, if the ash has Basar b'chalav in it, then why are you so worried about using the pot after you remove the ash? How are you using the ash for shampoo? And why is the Ramah calling this a chumrah? So says the Ber Hetiv, Kashaloi, Ladas Ramah, Sha'oisa Laftas Tachas Gedera, Oiv Klavim, Vishim Vashim Palim Basar, Imken, Heich Matlachil, Lasas Mai Me'ofer, Agabi Kira. How are you using the shampoo at all? HaKasav Sham Ramah, the Ragul Asar, Basar b'chalav. You're taking the shampoo which has Basar b'chalav in it because it's ash, and you're putting it in hot water, and the Ramah's just worried about using the pot afterwards. How are you doing that? It's in hot water. No, because the ash. Think of the ash like by the fire. Hot milk falls into the ash. Hot meat falls onto the ash. That ash has milk and meat together. You're taking that ash, put it in a bucket of hot water to wash your hair. How are you doing that? So that's the answer the Mefarshim give. The Mefarshim give that the reason why it's just a chumrah is because the ash really is burnt to the point where it's not really food. It's really burnt to a crisp. That's why the Ramah says, don't do this. It's a chumrah because it's not really a problem. Once you're in the world of ash, it's nothing. Just to finish up this Ramah, similarly, yesh leser gam kol shtamish min hakader shel tanurim shebeis achoref mishum denitadnez aleihem lepamim basar lepamim chala min hakader shemavashik tanurim. Apparently, under the ash, they would have these like pans. Don't use the pans because again, the ash has basar and the ash has chalav. Don't use the pans. It's a similar. Yeah, I guess so. But even that, the Ramah ends off with all of these halachos. Ubediavad ein lachush b'chol zeh. Bediavad, all of this is fine. This is all a chumrah. It's all a chumrah. And again, each one has reasons why it's a chumrah. If you don't mind, I know it's 9:33. I just want to do quick 2 seifim, and then the standalone seifim, and then we'll stop and we'll pick it up after. Sorry. What's Mikol Hesed mean in Ramah's world? If you're lenient, you do not lose out. Meaning don't. Meaning if someone is Mikol, let it be. Meaning you should be machmer, but if someone's mekel, let it be. Let it be. Don't stop it. Now, if you don't mind just doing the mechaber in Sif Zayin and the Sif Ches, and then maybe we'll stop for today. The mechaber in Sif Zayin is very short. Hamavashel shlil b'chalav. If you take a shlil is a fetus, a fetus of an animal. If you take the fetus and you cook it in milk, chayiv, that's basar b'chalav, meaning a fetus is flesh. And eating it is also basar b'chalav d'oraisa. Aval mavashel shilya. But if you cook the placenta, now these are all parts of the animal that are not considered edible. Cooking the placenta or the hide of an animal, gidim, the sinews, atzamos, the bones, ikre karnayim, utlafim, the hooves and the horns, harachim, potter. All of these things are minatora allowed, but rabbinically don't do it. So if you take the hoof of an animal and you cook it in milk, that is rabbinically forbidden. It's not technically meat because it's not edible, but it's basar b'chalav d'Rabbanan. It's not a good thing to do. And again, if you eat said hoof after cooking it in milk, it's only rabbinically an issue. Sif Ches, we already had before. It's on the sheet twice. but I just want to quickly review. And the Mechaber had said, what is Mechalav that he said before is only Derabanan. The Mechaber says, Yesh Misha Omer. There are those that say, Dinasiyuve Dechalva. Again, Nisiyuve Dechalva is Chalav HaMismatze Mikvon Agvina, which is milk that is removed. It's the watery residue after the cheese is made. You remove the cheese and there's milk in the water. Einam B'chlal Mechalav. That's not the Mechalav that's Derabanan, because the milk in the water is Doraisa. Aser min HaTorah. What's Mechalav that's only Derabanan? Ela Mechalav Hainu Achar Sha'osem Agvinis Mevashlam Anasiyuve. After they would remove the cheese, they would take that milky water, boil it, remove the curds on top. What's left is Mechalav that it's only Derabanan. That water, so it's gone through multiple stages. You remove the cheese, you boiled it, and then strained it. That water that's left over is only Derabanan. Zau Nikr Mechalav, it's only Derabanan. I'll tell you like this. We'll stop here. What we're going to do is Sif Tes and Sif Yud. From here to the end, we'll do fairly quickly. What it basically deals with is, if you open up the keva, which is one of the stomachs of the cows, it has, sometimes you'll have milk that's in the stomach because it's a baby cow that drank the milk and then it was in the stomach. Is that considered waste, or is it still considered milk? And what if you use it to make cheese? Because apparently anything that's inside the stomach lining of the rennet of that keva can be used to curdle cheese. You use it to curdle cheese. Is it milk? Is it meat? It's a whole sugya, but we will deal with this next time.